Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this online service of Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, a loving, spirited, and ever more inclusive community. Whoever you are, wherever you're from, whomever you love, and whatever your faith tradition, you are welcome here. My name is Kate Kinney, and I'm the assistant minister here at QUUF. I'd like to begin this service by acknowledging that the water, land, and shorelines here in Port Townsend are the traditional territory of the Skellum and Chimicum peoples. We honor and acknowledge our Indigenous members and neighbors and vow to help restore and sustain their homelands. In a moment, we'll light the chalice, but first, let us settle our minds and calm our hearts with the ringing of our chime. As a prelude to this service honoring trees and all of the natural beauty that surrounds us, let us pause first to reflect humbly upon a people in need of the world's help. The following prayer for Ukraine was composed by Valentyn Silvestrov and is performed here by members of Berlin's finest chorales, conducted by Kai-Uwe Jirka.
Oh
Thank you, friends in Berlin. Please join Gary and me in our chalice lighting words. We light this chalice in the midst of a world that is in pain and sorrow. May the goodness of all those who have strong-rooted trees bring sustenance, shade, and harbor to those fleeing the Ukraine be given strength to continue their service. And may those staying to protect and uphold the Ukraine be filled with light and hope. Our opening words are from The Heartbeat of Trees by Peter Valentyn. If there is a forest near you, make that your destination. On this expedition into the natural world, try to have no fixed destination and no pressing engagements you need to rush back to. Simply take the time you need to engage as many senses as you can. Stand and feel the air on your skin. Is there a soft, warm breeze blowing over your arms and legs? Or are you all bundled up with just the prick of frosty air on your cheeks? What can you smell? The gentle, earthy aromas of old leaves gently decomposing on the ground, or the tangy, brisk sense of new growth? What can you hear? The scratching of squirrels scuttering up trunks, or the rustle of leaves as birds turn them over to find insects underneath? What do you see if you look up close? Maybe a spider picking its way across the ridges on a trunk, or if you look far away, maybe the pattern of light as sun shines through leaves swaying in the wind. Is your sixth sense at work? Can you sense there is more life out there hidden from view? Can you sense a change coming in the weather as the breeze freshens or the sun heats up the ground? What about your peripheral vision? Are there other people enjoying the park with you, or are you completely alone? Shut your eyes and feel that this is the place where you belong. Take a moment to just sit on a stump or a log or a carpet of leaves. Does that bring you even closer to feeling part of a forest? Run your fingers through the crispness of leaves or over the softness of moss. Be like children. Don't worry about getting your hands dirty. Forest soil will easily wash off. What do you know about the trees and plants around you? Do you know their names? Do you know if they are safe to eat? And if they are, how they taste? We share a world with trees, and if they thrive, so do we. We are in this world together as we always have been, and we are in a position to make sure that it stays that way for a long time to come, because this is the world we were made for. I'd now like to welcome Bo Olgren, our Director of Family Ministry, who will share our Time for All Ages. Bo?
Good morning, everyone. In the muddle of the world today, we are exploring the strength and power of trees, and today sharing the story of one child's special connection to one tree, uniting with family far away and feeling a belonging and a feeling. Good morning, everyone. In the muddle of the world today, we are exploring the strength and power of trees and sharing the story of one child's special connection to one tree, uniting him with a family far away and bringing him a real feeling of belonging. This is My Tree by Hope Lim and illustrated by Il Sung Na. In the backyard of our new home stood an old oak tree, tall, crooked, and quiet. It reminded me of the persimmon tree that shaded our porch in Korea. Deep purple plums dotted every branch, so I named her Plummy. I watered her, climbed on her, and found a perfect spot to hide and spy until everyone wondered where I was. I spent my first day in America with Plummy, and she became my tree. Whenever I missed my home in Korea, Plummy lifted me up and I played on her branches. In the spring, I celebrated my birthday under her blooming white flowers. In the summer, I watched the sky through her thick green leaves. In the fall, I picked purple plums and shared them with the neighbors. And in the winter, I listened to the wind whistling through her dark brown branches. Plummy made me feel at home. One spring night, a rainstorm with high winds swept through the city and knocked down many trees, old and new, and Plummy fell down that night. The next morning, I saw Plummy lying in the middle of the yard, away from the house, away from the deck, and away from the fence. Her roots were pulled out of the earth, worn out and sad. An old tree knows when to lie down when it's time, my grandma had told me in Korea. I climbed on Plummy and stood on her. How immense she looked under my feet. For days, she turned into everything I wished for: a tree house, a rocket, an island, a ship. Neighborhood kids joined in, and we all had fun until a little boy scraped his arm and cried, and then it was time for Plummy to go. The next day, Plummy was hauled away, and without Plummy, everything felt different. No more white flowers, no more green shade, no more purple plums or whistling wind, and no more secret hiding place. In the middle of the yard, I stood alone, remembering Plummy, tall, crooked, and quiet. Daddy, I miss Plummy. And my dad nodded and squeezed my hand, and a few days later, we planted a new plum tree, short and straight, in Plummy's old place. I watered her and patted down the soil, and I wondered if she would ever know an old tree once stood there where her roots were spreading. I watered her more, and she grew little by little. Then one day I saw something familiar. The new plum tree had her first blossoms. White, fresh flowers dotted every branch and fluttered in the breeze. The new tree was short and straight, but dawned in milky petals. She stood quiet, like Plummy. "Hello," I whispered. In the backyard of our home stands a young plum tree. I water her and watch her grow tall and strong, and I feel right at home.
Thank you, Bo. What we'd like to do now is acknowledge and welcome those of you who are visiting us this morning. You're invited to say hello in the comments section and tell us your name and where you're from. The chat section can be found below or on the right side of the video when it is out of full screen, and we'd love to hear from you. We also hope you'll join us for our virtual coffee hour on Zoom. If you don't have that link, it will be posted in the chat section at the end of the service. And if you find this service useful or inspirational, hopefully both, please share the link with your friends and family. So welcome, everyone. We're glad you're with us today. We'll now receive the offering. Today, we are sharing our plate with Backpacks for Kids Port Townsend.
Hi, my name is Liz Quayle. I'm past president in public relations for Port Townsend, Kiwanis. I'm really glad that you're interested in hearing all about our Backpacks for Kids program. Our Backpacks program has been running for several years. We provide about 50 to 60 backpacks a week for students at Salish Coast and Blue Heron for students who are facing food instability over the weekends. That means that they rely upon the breakfast and lunches at Salish Coast and Blue Heron during the school week and don't have necessarily enough food to provide them with the nourishment that they need over the weekend. So our program provides 2 breakfasts, 2 lunches, and 2 dinners for each of those students who have been identified by the staff and the counselors at those schools. We don't know who they are, but we are very glad to support them, and we are very glad that you are willing to donate to help this program succeed and for students to get the nutrition they need. Thank you so much. If you have questions about our backpack program or about Kiwanis of Port Townsend, please email us at porttownsendkiwanis@gmail.com or visit our website at ptkiwanis.org. Thank you.
If you'd like to donate today, you have 3 options. Text the amount you'd like to give to the number now showing at the bottom of the screen. Go to our website, quuuf.org, and click on the giving link. Or simply mail a check to QUUF. Just remember to write Backpacks for Kids in the memo line. We'll now gratefully receive your offering as we listen to a classic poem by Joyce Kilmer and a classic 1939 recording by the late great baritone Paul Robeson.
I think that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree whose hungry mouth is pressed against the earth's sweet flowing breast. A tree that looks at God all day and lifts her leafy arms to pray. A tree that may in summer wear a nest of robins in her hair, upon whose bosom snow has lain, who intimately lives with rain. Poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree.
As many of you read in the weekly update, we have a reopening date for in-person services. Our first in-person service will be March 27th at 10 o'clock a.m. Doors open at 9:15. There are a few things to note if you are planning on coming to the service. Sign in with a vaccination card check at doors. If you would like to expedite the process on Sunday morning, you can come into the office during office hours to get your vaccine card checked off or leave a copy. Masks required inside. Seating will be limited to 2/3 capacity with overflow in the fellowship hall. Coffee hour is suspended. Thanks for your patience and understanding, and don't worry, we will still be streaming our services at 10 a.m. online as well. We will now share our joys and sorrows, recognizing that our personal joys and sorrows are only a fragment of the joys and sorrows of the larger community of life. And thus, we place this first stone thinking of those 2 million women and children who are seeking refuge, and those citizens who are staying behind to protect their homeland. And now within the congregation, we light this first candle for Clarice Forbes, who wanted to send out a joy for all the wonderful letters she's been getting from the pastoral care team, and others also during her first year at veterinary school. She says they warm her heart during the harder days and remind her that she has a loving community that she can always return to you. Thank you. We light this candle for Kate Lohr. Kate had successful surgery last week and continues to be on emergency leave, but is recovering and needs time to heal. And now we place the final stone, holding in our hearts the joys and sorrows I've just shared, but also thinking of such joys and sorrows among us that are unexpressed but of no less importance. I invite you now into a moment of silence.
Our reading this morning is a poem by David Wagner entitled Lost. Stand still. The trees ahead and bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger. Must ask permission to know it and be known. The forest breathes. Listen. It answers, I have made this place around you. If you leave it, you may come back again, saying, here. No two trees are the same to raven. No two branches are the same to wren. If what a tree or a bush does is lost on you, you are surely lost. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you. So ends the reading. Our special music today is a compilation of favorite tree photos from our own members put together for us by Ida Domazlicky. The heavenly music accompanying the slideshow is called Under the Cedars by Ida's friend Carolyn Crusoe, who performs it on hammered dulcimer.
These last weeks have been painful for many people in the world, and we need a place to still our hearts. There is no place on the earth that can bring me more bliss than when I am in the forest. I have had the joy of hiking in almost every type of forest in the United States and in other parts of the world, and there are no forests that make my heart sing more than those on our Olympic Peninsula. What is it about trees? They are so generous and lavish in their majesty and in their vulnerability. They are our wisdom teachers. Trees have been worshipped, coded, depleted, and known as keepers of our stories in their rings and in their whispers. And trees are often at the mercy of the human family. If you have ever been to Ireland, you know the beauty and the emptiness of the hills. There are so few trees. Now this is strange. In ancient Alwyn, or Irish script, there are 20 characters, and most are named after trees. Today, just 10% of the island is covered in forestry. Deforestation occurred with the growth of agriculture and the industrial age. The English cut down the ancient forests. The people who once worshipped the tree also saw its demise with the lumbering of their resources. A part of the Irish spiritual tradition was destroyed. A tree is an important part of our spiritual journey. Roger Cook, a scholar of trees and their symbolism, has written about the impact of the tree on our collective imagination. In mythology, the tree is rooted both above and below and unites the conscious and the unconscious life. It can be a symbol of our psyche. As an archetypal image, it transcends a single culture or dogma. Through both roots and branches, it lives between earth and sky and is woven into many religious traditions. The cosmic tree is the center point of many myths, symbols, and rituals. Mircea Eliade, the historian of religion, has called it the symbolism of the center. The center is the point of beginning, the origin of all things, or the root of all roots. Therefore, the tree stands as a cosmic axis that holds to three zones: the sky, the earth, and the underworld. There are many spiritual traditions that play with this tree image. In Egyptian mythology, the jade pillar, or the symbol of Osiris, is based on the image of the tree, the source of all energy. In some parts of Europe, on Midsummer's Day, the custom is to cut down a tree, bring it to the village, where it is stripped and then decorated in honor of the resurrection of the plant world. In May, the maypole is decorated with flowers. These images are symbols of virility and passion, the life source. The inverted tree, with its roots above and branches down low, is part of the earliest Indian scriptures, the Vedas and the Upanishads. All the world rests in it. All the Hindu gods and goddesses are the manifestation of a single hidden root. In Jewish mysticism, the inverted tree holds the center. A Kabbalist text states that all the divine powers form a succession of layers and are all like a tree. And a form of the cosmic tree can be seen in the menorah. Christian symbolism has Christ dying at the center of the universe, at the cross point of the cosmic tree, and it radiates in the four directional points. The Celtic cross with the circle adds the dimension of the sun, or ancient Celtic sun god, to the tree image. The four arms of the Celtic cross are thought to be representative of the four directions, the four elements of fire, earth, air, and water, and as representation of our mind, soul, body, and heart. The Buddhist legends state that Buddha sat under a sacred banyan tree when he received enlightenment. In images of this event, the Buddha is not represented physically. He is subsumed into the cosmic tree. The tree itself becomes the image of enlightenment, the channeling of energies. In Islam, if you look at many prayer rugs, the centerpiece is often the tree of life, the place where one is rooted in the earth and transcends to the heavens. It is around a sacred tree or pole that North American Indians have many of their sacred rituals. A friend of mine was invited to the sun dance, and she said that she was deeply moved and honored to be there. The center pole, according to Black Elk, is the one tree that represents the Great Spirit, the center of everything. There are many rituals that are still alive in many traditions that involve trees and the sacred. At one point, I was invited to organize and partake in a ritual at Chartres Cathedral in France. It took place in the underbelly, the crypt of the immense medieval structure. Chartres is located on the same spot where a Celtic druidic grove once stood. The word druid literally means knower of the oak tree. Chartres was the very center point of this grove. In the ancient crypt, there was once a wooden goddess with a child on each knee, a representation of a Celtic myth. When the statue became a symbol of the Christian tradition, one child was removed, representing the transition to Christianity. And if you go through the undercroft, you can still pass under the legs of a recreated statue, symbol of birth, enlightenment, as the Buddha experienced. Some of us brought wood and created an immense fire that was on the opposite side of the crypt, where the stairs are mounted to the labyrinth above. You must ascend. And on the summer solstice, the light comes through a deep blue glass and hits the center of the labyrinth. There are also stairs to climb to the top of the building, reaching to the sky. Remember that this was the site of the ancient oak forest, underworld, earth, sky, all represented in one symbolic building. The arches within the structure are the bones of ancient forests holding up the building with its still, potent strength. It was to this very spot that the citizens of Chartres gathered at the end of World War II. I want to share a few photos of another building named the Predikirche in Erfurt, Germany. This photo documents the bones of this amazing 14th century building where Meister Ehrhardt taught. The bell ringer took a group of us up to see the magnificent wood and the pulley and weight that hold up the huge bell. The wood, after 700 years, is still doing its job. The irony is that today there is no old growth forests left in Germany. These old beams are ghosts from the past. And in the Buddhist tradition, monasteries are made of wood and often have huge trees in the center space. This image is from Bhutan. In another tradition, wooden totems of British Columbia hold the stories of the ancestors. We humans have, through the ages, seen the sacred in a forest or a tree. We have honored our ancestors and built sacred edifices with trees as the center point. And we have cut and carved the wood to make objects of beauty and strength. Our short human history has been formed by ancient forests. We are the newcomers. The human species has existed only 0.1% of the time the trees have been around. Most of the world was forest until our recent history. Having camped in Siberia, I got a feeling of this. Nothing but forest for day after day after day, it is truly a feeling that most of our ancestors lived with and knew as their only way of life. In America, well, our history is built around our forests too. Have you ever studied American history through its trees? Ehrhardt Rutkow writes about the growth and ideology of America through one point of view, that of our trees and how we have managed and used them to grow into an empire. He tells the story of Americans as the holders of some of the oldest trees in the world. On another camping trip, I slept under the bristlecone pines, some of the oldest trees on Earth, in California's Inyo National Forest. One tree, Methuselah, has over 4,789 rings, a tree that has borne witness to our natural history of droughts, floods, shifting rivers, and the movement of glaciers. The tree tells our story back to the time of the Egyptian pyramids. It is thought to be the oldest living entity in the world. And my soul quakes at the thought of what a graduate student did to the oldest tree in the world, Prometheus. This tree was still alive, and not knowing how to ascertain its age, this young man chopped down this much alive tree and found that it was 5,000 years old. He did this with the permission of the Forest Service, who did not think that many people would come to visit this tree since it was out of the way for most tourists. As horrific as this is, it may have caused a shift in thought about how America manages one of its greatest assets, its trees. Rutkow takes us through the history of these trees, our inheritance, these forests that covered over 950 million acres. And yes, we've done horrific damage to trees, but there are also moments of enlightenment. In 1542, Giovanni de Verrazzano stated that our trees were the most important thing that this vast land had to offer to the whole world. The Sons of Liberty in our American Revolution chose the Liberty Tree as our common symbol of unity. When Washington and Jefferson were negotiating the American Constitution, they were also trading seeds and tree specimens. And Johnny Appleseed sold trees to populate the Ohio Valley. And as folks moved west, they brought their seeds with them. Thoreau awakened America to the beauty of the woodlands, and John Muir brought a passion for trees and helped create our system of national parks. We have a long history of mutuality with trees, and science has moved us far from the days when timber was seen as something that we simply used as a capitalist venture. Tree-friendly science writers like Peter Wohlleben and Suzanne Simard have helped us understand how trees have mirrored positive interactions. We now know that through a whole new breed of foresters that trees can store memories, release chemicals that can calm us down, have relationships with other trees as their roots touch underground, listen and communicate with one another, differentiate between light and dark, experience solidarity, are powerful allies in climate change, can smell and taste, have fungal connections which help them spread news, communicate through sound waves, have rich and leisurely lives, process gallons of water, exchange vital nutrients with other trees, grow in many extreme circumstances. They can learn, store carbon dioxide, and can share their dead matter to help sustain the next generation. A fifth of all animal and plant species, 6,000 of known species, depend on dead wood as it recycles and shares nutrients. Boy, I would like to have just a few of those points in my obituary. So, that we can celebrate the tree from its mythical, cultural, historical, and scientific points of view. But how do we sustain these magnificent beings to the next generation? First, help tell their story. I once had a class of kids stretch out on the floor and we outlined their bodies on butcher paper and exaggerated their toes for roots and their arms for branches. Then they wrote the names of anyone, of anything, and any animal that they knew or cherished. These names became part of their root system. For branches, we put what grew from that: love for music, certain kinds of food, ethnic heritage. Well, the universe was theirs to illustrate. Then when everyone was finished, we put string between the tree pictures, a symbol of the fungi, sugar, and root systems that connected everyone. And then one kid cried out, "Well, we are all connected." Yes, that's what a tree can teach us. And as individuals, well, we probably all have photo books of our family tree. What if we wrote down our tree lineage? What are the trees that gave us joy, gave us purpose? Just a few that I would mention in my story. The 3 fir trees that my mom and I planted when I was in high school. We called them the 3 witches. And every now and then, we would go out and read Macbeth to them in the evening light. A tree that was in my yard when I was in college. Every day during summer session, I would go out and read under it. And every day, a red fox came and sat near me. We loved that tree for its shade and companionship. A small tree outside of my apartment in New York City. It helped mark the seasons, and really it once cradled a boa constrictor. The Douglas fir that was in the backyard of my home in Seattle. We bought the home because of the tree. And every summer we would take out string and measure its shadow and give it praise for growing each year. You get the drift. Try it as an exercise of thankfulness. The trees support us in ways that are far beyond measurement. In this historical moment, it is our turn to support them. Learn about trees that should not be pulled as weeds because they are part of the forest. They are part of the supportive community. That is what we can learn from trees. Yes, they are magical, but most of all, in their wisdom, they show us that all trees are needed, as are we. What is my wish? I read an article about 2 of our own, our late member Ruthie Rue and her husband David. It talked about their stewardship of the land and trees that they loved and nurtured. My wish is that all of us could follow their example and honor one tree with the same amount of love. I wish that the leaders of our nations could sit under a wisdom tree and know that connection, not destruction, is our birthright. I pray that our brothers and sisters in Ukraine find sheltering branches from a tree of life. May this be so. Our closing song is hymn number 1068, Rising Green, performed by Doug and Pat Rogers.
Where the stars, where the stars forever have lain. My hands hold the weavings of time without end. My sight as deep as the sea. Beating my heart sounds the measures of old, that of love's eternity. That of love, that of love, that of love's eternity. I feel the tides as they answer the moon, rushing on a far distant sand. Winging my song is the wind of my breast, and my love blows over the land. And my love, and my love, and my love blows over the land. My foot carries days of the old into new. Our dreaming shows us the way. Wondrous our faith settles deep in the earth, rising green to bring a new day. Rising green, rising green, rising green to bring a new day. Rising green, rising green, rising green to bring a new day.
It's just about time to extinguish our chalice. But before we do so, I want to remind you that Larry Morell will preach next Sunday. His sermon title is Creating a Resilient and Sustainable Beloved Community. I hope you can join us. Let us now recite our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. After the service, I hope you'll join us for our virtual coffee hour. What you can expect is to be placed in a Zoom room with one of our coffee hour hosts, who will facilitate personal check-ins, as well as reflection questions on the sermon topic. I hope to see you there. Today's postlude is a fun ditty called A Song About Trees by Mitch Moffett and Greg Brown, AKA #Team Trees. Only trees accompany their voices.
Trees, 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 I love the trees. Trees, they are the reason we can breathe. You may not know, but in theory, that they can talk and smell and scream.
Oh, ultrasonically.
Roots, through fungal network signal shoot. The chemicals relay the news of who is sick and who needs food. Leaves, absorbing CO2 release, plus water and some energy, create the oxygen we need. But we know most importantly that they are so freaking pretty. like you and me.
Trees.
Pass memories to seed.
Trees.
And feel pain up in seeds.
Trees.
Warn friends with ethylene.
Trees.
And help your arteries.
Trees.
With elasticity.
Trees.
Increase immunity.
Trees.
And lung capacity.
Trees.
Our climate crisis is in need of you to save humanity. That's why we can't ignore the trees.